You're doing it again, man. There's not even any tea and biscuits this time. You have a seat. Did you read the book? Did you? Right, well, you do the review then. Come on, you tell us all about it. Good boy. You can take it from here. That's what I thought. Better. So, when my wife first gave me my copy of The Perfect Wife, I thought it was her autobiography. But alas, no. It's fiction. The perfect wife in question is Abby Cullen Scott, who, no spoilers, wakes up at the very beginning of the book in a hospital, realising that she's been in some sort of terrible accident. Alas, again, no. Her husband Tim confidently tells her she is in fact dead, and has been for the last 5 years. No spoilers, the premise is right at the beginning of the opening pages, and Abby discovers that far from being an accident, she's dead, or she was, or someone who's like her was, because in fact what she is a cobot, a companion robot created by her genius Silicon Valley tech founder genius husband. He has created a robot with all of Abby's memories, and she is a replacement for the late herself. JP Delaney is the author of one of my best reads from last year, The Girl Before. If you want to watch my review of The Girl Before, you can't, because I hadn't started doing this, so it doesn't exist. Tough luck. We can only do this one. So we're doing The Perfect Wife, and you're just going to have to get over it. The Perfect Wife is about Abby after her release from what is not a hospital, but in fact the office, where she has been created by her Frankensteinian husband. It's fair to say it messes with her noodle a bit, and she's got to try and find her place in the world. Now, you do expect a sort of game-changing twist with this sort of book, and it's only a couple of chapters in before you go, boom, there's the twist. And you proceed, but then a few chapters after that, boom, there's the twist again. And then it's only a few chapters after that, boom, there's the twist. And before you know it, every 2 minutes, boom, 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 there's the twist. There's the twist, a twist, a twist, a twist, a twist, a twist. Boom, there's the twist. Constant twists, which is great. Every time you think you know what the premise is, you're wrong. You only knew part of the story. There's a whole new dimension that turns the entire premise on its head, and we're starting again. And it just keeps going like that, which is brilliant. It's the sort of book I really enjoy because the momentum keeps going. Delaney writes really short chapters, which I kind of like. It fits into what is normally reading on the go when I'm commuting. Less so at the moment, it's fair to say. But also just because he packs every chapter end with some thread that makes you want to read on, which is quite annoying because, you know, you have to stop at some point to eat. But you know, this is the sort of book that is rightly described as unputdownable, and in between all the times that I wasn't putting it down, I definitely struggled to stop reading. Or something like that. Anyway, my point is that every 5 minutes something happens and it never gets dull. There's no saggy bit. It keeps on going because you are discovering all of these things at the same time that Abby is. Abby is the perfect wife, and therefore the book is all about her. We get to enjoy two time streams, two versions of Abby, as it were, both narratives completely centred around her. So the first main narrative, the present day narrative, is written in omniscient second person. It is all about you, and you is Abby. It's a bit strange, it takes a bit of getting used to, but you'll get used to it. You know, you think, you do, you say, you feel, etc. It's all you, but they know everything that's going on inside Abby's head, and it's weird. It's a weird narrative structure because you kind of, when I first started to read it, I thought, well, if this person is saying you, then the narrator is clearly a character and a stakeholder, and it's about this narrator, and we're going to find out who the narrator is. But actually it just carries on describing everything that's going on in Abby's head and all the actions that Abby takes. Now, with the first narrative taking us forward from the beginning of the book, the second narrative goes way back to when Abby and Tim first met, charts the path of their relationship to the point that the book began. That is written in limited knowledge, first person. So we are the colleagues, it would seem, of Abby. So Abby joins Tim's company as a resident artist. That is how they are introduced and how the relationship forms. And all of that is what we observe of Abby and Tim, what we think about their relationship, and all of the gossip and speculation. We think this, we think that, so and so said this, which made us think that, and they sort of sum up the consensus of the workforce. So again, slightly different from the usual third person omniscience that you'd expect, or the first person that's all about I did this, it's we thought this about the situation, but really appropriate for the sort of insidious workplace atmosphere where we have a collective opinion on you, especially when you happen to be the boss's new girlfriend. So let's talk about Abby, the perfect wife. She is, in the past when she is introduced, she's surfer chick, really different from Tim, very charismatic, very easygoing, freewheeling, and Tim is not like that at all. Tim is so straight-laced, type A, really, really neurotic, and totally single-minded in his drive for the future of his business. So it's really interesting to see their relationship develop. You can't help but get a bit invested in it. Tim sounds like a terrible and awful boss for sure, but quite a compelling character. There's a bit of hero worship that goes on for people who are interested in his field of work. Robot Abby, current Abby, is built to have all the empathy of a human being. So she has all the memories but also all of the feelings that Abby had, and remains very empathetic moving forward, even though she is a machine in essence. It's not clear, it's not obvious to people that she is a machine. You would only really know that she is non-human if she were to suddenly glitch. A third character that I really want to talk about is Danny, who is the son of Abby and Tim. He is severely autistic, and JP Delaney draws on his own experience of having an autistic son. And within the book they talk about different potential ways to help Danny navigate his life. So they talk about positive reinforcement, getting reward for displaying the behaviours they want him to display. They talk about negative reinforcement, particularly electric shock therapy to dissuade him from exhibiting negative behaviour. And also the third option, which is not to try and modify Danny's behaviour at all, but to modify his environment and the world and make it adapt to him rather than make Danny adapt to the world. And this in itself is interesting because Abby, as a robot, has the opportunity to form a fresh opinion on it, because some of her more recent memories around these sorts of subjects are a bit hazier. So as she encounters it for what is really the first time, she has a fresh take on the situation, which is the situation that we're seeing for the first time as well. But one step further on, outside of the story itself, is the very obvious and very clever way that these two characters can be compared, because Abby is, to all intents and purposes, human, albeit that she is powered by electricity. She has emotions. The question is asked whether she has a soul. At what point does does she become a human is sort of touched on, not in great detail, but it's touched on. And certainly the intellectual property of a person's personality and a person's character post-death. Is there such a thing, and if so, who does it belong to? All of these issues can be compared with Danny, who is quite clearly a human being, but where he has all of the anatomy and the blood and the parentage that a human would have. He doesn't have the empathy that is present in Abby in her new form, and the contrast between them is interesting. So what happens? I can't tell you because that would be a spoiler, but it is absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed it. Obviously nothing is as it seems, and the description of the premise that I gave you at the very beginning changes, and it gets increasingly darker, increasingly, frankly, weirder, but all the while it is absolutely great. 5-word summary is very Black Mirror-ish and very Stepford's Wife-ish. So Black Mirror meets Stepford Wives is one 5-word description that I could give you that you would probably get. I'm sure if you went on to Goodreads for just a few reviews, you would find both of those titles cropping up. Or I suppose another title is Tim, or does he now? Because everything that you think is true keeps changing. It's about Abby, it's about Tim, it's about their relationship, it's about Tim's view of Abby as the perfect wife and what he views the perfect wife as, what he sees in Abby, what he chooses to see in Abby, what he chooses not to see in Abby, and where Robot Abby fits into this narrative, and understanding what happened before she died, how she died, and what her purpose is now that she's alive again. Very easy for me to tell you what song makes me think of this book, because there is a song named in the book. Being about artificial intelligence, it is entirely appropriate that when a song was named in The Perfect Wife, I got my artificially intelligent assistant Google to play said song on Spotify, and I listened to it repeatedly for the rest of the time that I was reading the book, in between a few other tracks of course, so I didn't end up gouging my eyeballs out listening to it. And not that that would have helped, because I could still have heard it, I would have just had no eyes. Anyway, so I kept listening to that particular song, and like any good robot, I now will associate that song with this book, and that song is Snow by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So if you're going to cast the perfect wife, you have to cast two Abbys. You've got to cast original Abby Cullen when she first meets Tim, and she's really attractive. Surfer chick, really attractive, artistic, really attractive, laid back, and quite attractive. Apparently, according to what the colleagues mentioned once or twice about her. Oh, and they do say once or twice that she's quite attractive. You also have to be able to cast futuristic Abby Cullen Scott, Mrs. Tim, who is a robot who needs to. I think you've got to be able to cast someone who can be a bit sort of robotic and as well. So it could only be the fantastic Margot Robbie, surely, who would be able to give you the laid back Harley Quinn-ness that you've always needed, but also the much more demure and contemplative robot version who is trying to figure out what's happened to everybody. For Tim, I think Jeremy Sheffield would be great, because he could be really authoritative and really commanding, but also detached and aloof, really focused on his work and single-minded and driven. I think in the nicest way, you can't have someone too personable. So someone like Jeremy Sheffield, I think, is just enough of a to pull it off. If you'll indulge me, I would also love to cast 2 supporting characters. If this was going to be a movie, then I would love to see Harriet Sansom Harris playing the role of the matchmaker. She's Frasier's agent in Frasier. And I think she would be hilarious as this really zany, nuts matchmaker to the rich and famous. She goes in and does matchmaking really for all of the Silicon Valley founders who are generally very rich, very male, very single, very, 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 very socially awkward, and need someone to A, find them a suitable partner, and B, coach them in the art of not getting dumped. I think she would be hilarious and much needed comic relief in what is a bonkers and dark book. I would also cast Lucy Dixon as Shan. I don't know why her face popped into my head as I was reading about Shan, who is nanny to Danny when Abby gets home. Oof, why do they all bloody rhyme? Annie finds the nanny for Abby, nanny, Ranny, Danny, Abby. They all rhyme. Boom! There's the twist. Shan is Danny's nanny, and when I read about her, I just pictured Lucy Dixon in the role. The less said about her, the better. I guess that leads me on to the best character. It is, to be honest, Megan Meyer, the matchmaker. She is, like I say, nuts, but she is probably one of the most colourful characters. All of J.P. Delaney's books have this sort of, I'll get the one I threw away as well, they all have this kind of white grayscale palette, and for various reasons it seems to follow through into the book. So with The Perfect Wife, you know, Abby underneath her face, when that comes off, she's white and smooth, and I picture the office as being all glass and white, and everything being very white and forensic and clinical, and the characters in their own ways are very clinical. She's a robot, he's a single-minded executive, but Megan Meyer is just a splosh of colour that appears like a whirlwind. She's not in it very much, but I love it when she is, so she gets the best character prize. Let's do scores on the doors! I'm going to give this a smacking great big 5. It would probably be, if I'm being honest, 4.5, but I'm feeling generous, so we're going to go 5 rather than 4, because I really enjoyed it. You know, from the first chapter right through to the last, I was hooked. I didn't get bored at all. I really enjoyed being in the middle of it. I felt like I got to know the characters really well. Didn't like many of them, but I don't think you're supposed to. And it kept me guessing. There were bits that I started to maybe figure out, but even the things that I thought I had sussed, boom, there was an extra dimension of twist, and I really like that. The twists felt genuinely surprising, but not so unfair that you feel like it is ridiculous and you've been led on. So I really, really enjoyed it, and I have to say it has been great. It's unusual for me to have given out 2 5-star awards at this point in the year. We're only in May, but I am going to give it 5 stars. The Perfect Wife by J.P. Delaney. If you read it, then please tell me what you thought in the comments below, and that's it, really. That's all I've got to say. I will see you on the next review. Thank you very much for watching. Bon voyage.